Row crop farmers, farmland owners, and beginning farmers are increasingly curious about soil health. Integrating grazing ruminants ramps up soil health, and the feed value of cover crops can often offset the added cost of planting them. Livestock can also utilize a small grain in rotation or perennials planted on more marginal row crop fields. This video is one in a series through the Minnesota Institute for Sustainable Agriculture's Endowed Chair in Agricultural Systems. Luke and Allie Peterson operate a frame farm with 500 acres of certified organic cropland rented from several landowners in western Minnesota. Luke and Carmen Fernholz are integrating grazing cattle to help them manage the rotation that includes cash crops, wheat marketed through Bakersfield flour, and kernza. They discuss their partnership on 350 tillable acres of Carmen and Sally Fernholz owned land, along with the private financing of equipment and cattle the Fernholzes provide. Mary Jo and Luverne Forbord sold low-line Angus cattle from their herd to Luke and Carmen and mentor them. These farmers talk about their relationships and shared views about the importance of health to the land, rural communities, food, and well-managed grazing cattle.
Well, let me just give a little bit of opening, and then I would really like Luke to talk about why we are bringing them here. Because for me it's really a personal thing, because as you mentioned, I've been doing organic since the 70s, actually farming and doing organic since the 70s, but I've always felt that we needed a livestock enterprise in the system to make it a complete organic system. And so I've always wanted cattle in the system, and so after this many years, finally this fall we've been able to bring my dream come true and introduce, and we now have about 10 bred heifers on the farm.
We've always planted cover crops, and we've really never been able to utilize them, so they've kind of been an expense. We've been able to benefit from them, but if we can have cattle or cows go out and graze those cover crops, then we can kind of turn that kind of into another enterprise that we can make money off of, and thinking long term, obviously. And then another reason is fertility. So long term, our goal is to use all of our own hay, because alfalfa is a very important part of our rotation for weed management, and to build up organic matter and for nutrients.
How would you describe the relationships among your families?
Well, I, like a lot of people know, I've got 4 growing children, and they all love the farm. They love to come back here and visit, but I knew they weren't going to be farmers. And so when I was able to connect with Luke, it really was my opportunity to pass on to someone and see what I hoped would be the results of what I'd been doing for some 40 years, and have this young person then take it to the next level. And that's what I'm hopeful of. And the other thing that I really like to mention is the fact that after this many years, and because of good organic prices over the years, I've been able to get myself quite financially sound. And so what I'm also able to do then is use some of that financial capability to help finance Luke and Allie in their endeavors to keep the whole operation going.
Yep. As far as helping us, it's a huge deal. It keeps me from borrowing so much money up front and taking such a big risk all at once. If markets were to change tomorrow, which they can and which they are changing, I don't have so much on my plate at one time, and that also helps with in buying the equipment long term, one piece at a time. That frees up some interest at the bank for me that I don't have to pay every year all at once. So that frees up my flexibility as far as having a more diverse rotation, putting more money into livestock, and to be able to move the farm forward in a way that me and Carmen we both agree on. So.
And the one thing that I just have to say is that I'm really fortunate because when Luke came along, we were already on the same page. And it was just a matter of him asking me how I did it over the last 40 years and how he can take it and improve on it.
How did you develop relationships with Luverne and Mary Jo Forbord, and how did they help you?
I maybe met Luverne and Mary Jo through the University of Morris. Just they had a field day at their farm and I went to it. Was kind of blown away by how beautiful it was. Definitely knew after visiting their farm that was something that I wanted to include into my rotation. And then Luverne has been so easy to work with. Both of them have a wealth of knowledge that they're more than willing to give to me, and it's a pretty unique situation. I feel like if I have any questions, I don't hesitate to call, and he's very helpful.
Right, and my relation goes back to when we were both, and still are, obviously involved quite a bit with the Sustainable Farming Association, and Mary Jo especially, I think, was executive director for several years. So that's where my relationship goes back to those years. And then when Luke made the connection and we wanted to do the cow-calf thing, it was a natural thing that just was going to happen.
In what ways do your relationships with the Petersons and Fernholzes support them to integrate grazing livestock into their cropping system?
When I first met Luke and Allie, I was introduced to them. Carmen, I believe, introduced us, and my first thought was, well, I know Carmen and Sally's kids, so this must be their nephew. And I thought that there must be like a family relationship, because that's kind of how farming is done. And we've been told often that unless you are born into a farm, you might as well forget it. Well, no, that wasn't the case. And, I think that it shows real resolve on the part of both generations to really make sure that somebody's children farm. And there are assets that an older farmer may be able to, offer to a younger farmer. And that's what was really intriguing to me, is that not only just Carmen and Luke, but Sally and Allie, and how they value health, how they value the health of the land, the food that comes from it, the animals who graze it. Those are things that we could all agree on and really want to further. And it's not an easy journey. When you're out of the mainstream, we've been doing this for 20 years and we still get asked if it makes sense. And of course we wouldn't be still doing it if it didn't. And to us it's super just rejuvenating to hear of young couples who have studied this, who maybe have farmed before in a conventional setting, and their resolve and their ability to persuade a lot of people, including maybe an older generation sometimes.
This is our herd of lowline Angus. The smaller ones in there are heifer crop that Luke and Allie are going to be getting. They're a really nice bunch of heifers that Carmen and Luke are going to work together and get onto their A-frame farm down there, I guess it's called, at Carmen's, because they realize the importance of livestock and the fertility, and also being able to maybe use cover crops and use that for a feed source for the cattle.
It's true. We are what we eat, and that's also true for animals. So we need to, in rural areas, really consider how we get back to health, how that becomes the outcome, not only for the world, but for our communities. It's the most worthy cause, I would say, to feed our community well. Allie being a health professional and as a family really valuing health, there couldn't be, I don't think, a firmer foundation on which to base that than a grass-based system that includes cattle.